Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about linear perspective, and we're going to learn about the first part of linear perspective, which is called one-point perspective. For this assignment, you're going to need one of your longer pieces of thin paper, so please find that in your supplies. You have about 4 of them. You need one of the 4. You're going to take a ruler that you have with your supplies, a pencil, and you might need an eraser as you go along, so put that to the side. All right, and you're going to start off by putting what we call a horizon line on our picture. Pick some place approximately in the center and make sure your ruler goes from one end to the next all the way across the horizon line. Find the approximate center of your paper and put a small dot and label it vanishing point. Now that you've labeled the horizon line and the vanishing point, we're going to title the piece One Point Practice. As a beginner, there's a couple places that are really hard for you to do squares in, and that's above and below a vanishing point. So we're going to put X's on our paper here and here to remind ourselves not to make X's boxes above and below our vanishing point. Let's get started on our first box. There's 4 steps to making a one-point perspective box. The first part is you want to draw the front of your box. In one-point perspective, right, you always have the flat side facing you. Say, for example, on this box here, if you see it's a nice little container, right? If you have it facing you like this, so you can only see the front or one side, then it's in one-point perspective because the front flat side is facing you. If you have it so that you can see the corner first, then it's a 2-point perspective piece. So since we're learning one-point perspective today, you have to draw the front flat side of whatever object you're doing is directly in front of you with no corners facing you as the closest thing. So here I put on a square on my paper. Now I'm going to start transforming it into a one-point perspective box. Step 1, put the shape on your paper. Step 2, draw a line back to your vanishing point everywhere you can without going over the top of your box. So here, I've done one of the lines. I can go back from a corner or an indent, whichever ones you have, without drawing over the front of my image. Here on this bottom corner, I can do the same thing. I can draw back to my vanishing point with my ruler and the corner without drawing over the front of my image. Let's try this top corner. Yes, I can do the same. Let's try this back top corner. This one won't work. If I do draw this one, I will be drawing in the front of my image. So I do not need to do that corner. I'll just take my eraser and clean it up a little bit. Step 1, draw the front of the image. Step 2, draw your lines back to the vanishing point without drawing any of them over the front of the image. Step 3 is measure. Right now this may seem kind of stupid because it's only a box, but later on when we get to complex objects you will want to be able to do this very well. I will pick 1 inch. I'm going to line my ruler up with the very corner of my ruler, and then I'm going to go down and put a dot 1 inch down my line. You might be able to see that little black dot there. Then I'm going to do the same for the other 2. I'm going to start at the corner, line it up with my vanishing point again, and I'm going to measure down 1 inch down this line and put a dot. Now, this does not give perfect representation of everything. It doesn't make it absolutely perfect to do this. It just gives you a guesstimate on where your other lines will go, and that changes depending on how close or far away they are from the horizon line and what kind of shape you're doing. But it gives you an inkling. Now I've put a line 1 inch down on every single one of my 3 lines. You should do the same on yours. Now I need to make my box make it look like it's getting smaller as it goes back into the distance. So I'm going to copy this line back farther into the distance. As you can see, if I take my ruler and I drag it down at the same angle, see I put it on the edge, I drag it down. When I get to them, the two don't match up. If I were going to just put the dots together, I would get a very crooked line. It wouldn't be right at all. So I'm going to fudge it. That means I go a little bit past the first one and a little bit before the second one, and I put my line. Now let's try the bottom here. That's pretty close for the bottom one. If I go to my dot and I go to the edge, they line up pretty good because I've fudged it about 50% in between each one. Do several boxes now. Your goal is to do 8 of them. And I'm going to vary them a little bit. This box is going to be large and cross over the top, over my horizon line. And this box will be small, minuscule, a little teensy box. Let's do 1 or 2 together, just so you get the hang of it. All right, step 1, draw the front of my box. Step 2, draw lines back wherever you can without drawing over the top of your image. 1, 2. Can I do this one? No, I would draw over the front of my image. Can I do the top right? No, I would draw over the front of my image. Let's try doing step 2 on this small box. I can do the top corner. I can do the top. I can do the bottom right corner. But I cannot do the top left corner. Now I'm going to measure. I'll pick something small for this one because I want it to be a small box. You can vary the amount of whatever you measure as long as you measure the same amount on each individual corner. So this one I'm picking 1/4 of an inch, and on each line I'm measuring down 1/4 of an inch, and it gives you a guesstimate on what you want. On this guy, I think I'll do 1 inch like we did before, so it can be a nice big box. Taking mine, putting it up against the corner, measuring down each line, and using the same measurement. I'll line up my ruler, and I'll drag it down so that I get a nice straight line. See how I line it up with the edge, and then without changing the angle, I drag it back. This is going to be very important for when we get to complex shapes. Not so much now, but very much so later. You see when it gets close to the horizon line, your dots get even a little bit more off. But when you're far away from the horizon like this, you see how when I drag it back on this one, they match up almost perfectly. All right, let's do the top one. Now, your goal is to put 8 boxes around your paper and clean up your boxes so that they're floating nicely. When a box is above the horizon line and below the horizon line, you can't see the top or the bottom of it. When it's above the horizon line, you can see the bottom. And when it's below the horizon line, you can see the top of it. Maybe you can see how you can see different sections depending on where it's located on the paper. By erasing these little lines, it gives lots more room for us to add more boxes onto our paper. In the next part of this video, you'll see a time-lapsed sections showing the next few boxes until you get to 8. Please follow along if you're still confused, or make up your own. Thank you for listening.